Cleveland, these Cardinal fans have joined in the celebration.
Welcome to baseball seasons 1982. Anything can happen.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
The 1982 baseball season began like any other. Pennant aspirations around the league. New faces in new places. But also, there was a pressing burden to erase the negativity brought on by what had happened the previous summer.
Good evening. The Major League Baseball strike is on.
The 81 strike was just such an ugly time for baseball.
The strike is now 16 days old, including today's games. 198 baseball games have already been canceled.
All told, 712 games were canceled in the summer of 1981, in baseball's first ever mid-season strike.
Baseball's back on the headlines. We're going to play ball.
Play resumed in August at a rescheduled All-Star game, but the damage was clear and undeniable.
The players are definitely wrong, 100%.
A controversial split-season format led to a makeshift three-round playoff structure. And while the Los Angeles Dodgers would ultimately win the World Series,
the Dodgers are the 1981 champions of baseball.
After a tainted season, there was a lingering sense that baseball would have to redeem itself and recapture fans in 1982.
Several times during baseball's history, they've had to rebuild the game. They've had to get off the floor.
Baseball needed something special to get the fans' attention again.
That attention would build all season, thanks to a series of captivating division races that raged on throughout 1982. It was a season that began with a blazing start.
And the Braves are 9-0.
Remained tense throughout.
The Angels win it and move the game on top of the American League West.
And featured unpredictable races for first in each of the four divisions across baseball, from east to west.
God almighty!
North to south.
Atlanta wins!
And everywhere in between.
And the Cardinals are still in first place.
With a month left in the regular season, 11 teams had legitimate shots at winning a division title. And as memories of the strike faded further beneath the exciting tension in the standings, one thing was certain. Baseball was back.
That is what saved baseball at that particular time, was all those teams doing great things right through the end of September.
And the Cardinals win!
And as the pennant races heated up that summer, there was an exciting crop of fresh faces.
Number 3, Steve Sax.
Like the Dodgers' rookie second baseman, Steve Sax, saddled with big expectations in L.A., not only forced to follow 1981's Fernando Mania, but also replacing a popular and respected presence in the Dodger infield.
It wasn't an easy thing for Steve Sax to come up to this Dodger team and transition in where Davey Lopes had been such a fixture. The Dodgers had the longest standing complete infield in the history of baseball, and basically Steve Sax broke that up.
That vaunted infield included Ron Say at third, Bill Russell at short, Steve Garvey at first, and now Sax at second.
I love to see a young man with the enthusiasm that he possesses. He plays baseball like my wife shops all day long.
In Baltimore, Orioles manager Earl Weaver was preparing to say goodbye.
Manager Earl Weaver.
Just as a promising rookie shortstop said hello.
I was always an Oriole fan, and I've always wanted to be an Oriole. As far as a baseball player, I couldn't imagine myself being anything but an Oriole.
And becoming an Oriole meant Cal Ripken was carrying on a family legacy in Baltimore, where his father was a coach who had long mentored his son on the Oriole way.
You have to be alive now, just in case he might drag one.
I'm very pleased and proud to see him in the major leagues. Anyone would be proud to have their son playing in the major leagues.
And if father was looking for son to make a strong impression on opening day in 1982, he wouldn't be disappointed.
Your first at bat, you want to get off in a good way. And I remember going up there thinking, okay, don't be too anxious.
swing and a fly ball well hit deep in the gap and deep left center field. The center fielder going beat is gone. Home run, Cal Ripken.
Ken Singleton, I believe, was on first base. And I was so excited that I was running around the bases, and Ken Singleton, being a veteran, was just in his home run trot as if he'd hit it.
About every rookie in his exuberance of hitting his first home run, they race around the bases. They don't know how to make a moment out of it.
But the best feeling within that home run was coming around third base, and my dad was a third base coach, and him reaching his hand out and shaking my hand. You know, simple little thing, but very powerful and very meaningful.
While rookies earned some attention early in 1982 with their strong play, no story was unfolding at a faster pace than the exploits of a speedster in Oakland. There, in his fourth season with the A's, 23-year-old Rickey Henderson was staging an all-out assault on the record book, and Lou Brock's single-season stolen base mark.
There he goes.
As part of the aggressive style of play coined Billy Ball, A's manager Billy Martin never hesitated to give Henderson the green light.
He's going.
And by the end of April, Henderson already had 22 stolen bases, solidifying his status as the most exciting player in the game.
The ability for him to bounce off the base and then just sort of take his acceleration from a bounce, and you can see it in his legs as he moved. Very few people can do that.
And we have a liftoff.
One time I faced him and I walked him, or he got on somehow, base hit, and he stole second, he stole third. And I looked at him over at third base and I said, go ahead and steal home.
He was about as unstoppable in 1982 as anybody in the history of baseball on the bases.
While no one started faster on the base paths in 1982 than Rickey Henderson, there was no team that started hotter than the Atlanta Braves.
There's your ball game. Chris Chambliss steps in the bag. The Braves are 5-0.
And as the Braves came out of the box winning, at the center of the Atlanta lineup was a 26-year-old power-hitting outfielder named Dale Murphy.
And I'm sitting in the dugout with Frank Robinson, who was the Giants manager, and he said, I have never seen a guy in recent times who could hit to all field with such power consistently.
The powerful Braves lineup also featured Chris Chambliss and Bob Horner.
Horner drives another one, left field. Fielder going back, looking up. See you later, home run.
And while 43-year-old knuckleballer Phil Negro was still confusing hitters,
knuckleball struck him out.
First-year manager Joe Torre kept things loose in the dugout.
Slash away, my man. Right where you want it now. You hit this. Come on.
Every time we stepped on the field, we just felt like we couldn't lose.
A sweep of Houston gave Atlanta 11 straight wins to start the season, setting a modern-day NL record.
Look at these people. They're on their feet again.
It was the most exciting thing many of us young players with the Braves had ever experienced.
Murphy going back. Butler going back at the wall. They did it. The Atlanta Braves have got it.
I can't believe what I'm seeing. People running out and feel like it was the World Series.
Look at the mob scene.
The streak would eventually run to a remarkable Major League record, 13 straight wins to start a season.
The Braves have won their 13th straight. And Atlanta, Fulton County Stadium is going crazy again.
That first 2 weeks of 82 was the most incredible thing because it was so unexpected.
Meanwhile, west of Atlanta, but atop the NL East, the St. Louis Cardinals were creating their own April win streak of 12 games.
Runner breaking the throw to Trio, and now Trio can't get it out of his glove, and Herr comes in to score.
While the Braves utilized power, Whitey Herzog's Cardinals played their own brand of the game, dubbed Whitey Ball, a mix of small ball, defense, and speed.
The squeeze play, it's a beauty.
We couldn't hit it very far, but we could do a lot of things. Mainly offensively, we were very good. Defensively, we were outstanding.
The heart of that defense was shortstop Ozzie Smith, simply dazzling in his first year in St. Louis.
Ozzie Smith, the wizard.
A sparkling defensive play by Ozzie Smith.
He had all the quickness, all the speed, all the coordination, and all the flair that he could bring to the position of shortstop.
Across the infield at first, Keith Hernandez seemed a lock for his 5th straight Gold Glove.
When you talk about Keith Hernandez, you're probably talking about one of the greatest defensive first basemen in the history of the game.
The thing that separated us from the other good teams in the division was the fact that we caught and threw the baseball better than most people.
The double play! What a double play by Ozzie Smith!
The real challenge for us was our pitchers keeping us close and keeping us in ball games, which they were able to do.
Those pitchers could throw with confidence, thanks to the defense behind them, as well as the steady veteran presence of catcher Darrell Porter. The ace of the staff was right-hander Joaquin Andujar, pitching in his first full season in St. Louis.
Struck him out with a sidearm breaking ball.
And once the speed, defense, and solid start in pitching had done their jobs, the Cards could turn to one of the best closers in baseball.
For 7 years, Bruce Sutter was the most dominant relief pitcher in the history of the game. I've never seen a relief pitcher that good, and he had that split finger.
I'm sure guys threw it before him, but I think he was the guy that maybe exposed it as one of the toughest pitches ever to hit.
Sutter out of the stretch, and the strike 2 pitch is way down and missed, and that split-fingered fastball just wrapped him up.
They were pretty much a team you had to beat by the 7th inning, because Sutter would easily pitch 2 innings or more if necessary.
Whitey Ball made the Cards fun to watch and easy to root for.
Strummer's stealing home. He is safe, and the Cardinals win.
But by early summer, the first-place Redbirds were being overshadowed by a team with a powerful presence a few hundred miles to the north, with a lineup full of hitters doing everything the Cards didn't and more. As June 1982 began, the Milwaukee Brewers hardly looked like a championship-caliber baseball club. Mired in 5th place with a 23-24 record, struggling to reconcile the stern style of manager Buck Rogers with a roster full of colorful characters and free swingers. But with his team underachieving, owner Bud Selig decided to make a move.
We had to change managers in May and brought in Harvey Keene, who was from here.
Keene, who had been the Brewers' hitting coach for over a decade, was a different kind of leader.
Harvey was certainly a fixture in the organization. He was here from my first day. Harvey was the perfect guy to go in. Everybody knew him well and respected him.
I've known Harvey for a long time, and if I'm having any kind of problems at all, I can always talk to Harvey.
Already close with several of the players, Keene also brought a relaxed confidence to the manager's office.
The biggest key was just his personality. He was really laid back, and that allowed us to be relaxed and go play.
His demeanor off the field is carried over to his on-the-field personality, and I think that personality has transcended his entire ball club.
When I was traded there, he calls me in, and he said, "You're pitching on Thursday. You know a lot more about pitching than I do. Just tell me when you had enough. And if there's a problem, go get him."
Swing and a miss! He struck him out!
And that's kind of the way he handled things with the ball club. He would say, "You guys know how to play, just play."
And it quickly became apparent that trust was all his talented ball club needed.
Harvey Keene in the dugout for the Brewers. Since he took over following the firing of Buck Rogers, they played at a .654 pace, winning 34 and losing 18. They are an awesome hitting ball club.
If you liked power, if you liked 10 to 8 ball games, those Brewers were pretty appealing.
Drill! Away back! Go, ball, go! Gone! A home run!
There were a lot of unusual things about that ball club, including the physical and personality makeup of it.
We just had all kinds of characters, and I think the fans around the country kind of identified with that.
Starting with their dominant closer, Raleigh Fingers.
The big right-hander with a handlebar mustache.
The club was filled with personality.
We had 4 guys that had just escaped from Attica State Prison, Vuckovich and Gorman Thomas and Jamie Easterly. You didn't want to bump into them in an alley at night because they looked like they could mean to do you some harm. And then you had Molitor and Yount on the other end, who I would consider to be the altar boys.
The eclectic combination of athletes formed a menacing lineup.
It was a tremendous team. They called them Harvey's Wall Bangers. And they could really hit.
We started with a guy we called the Igniter. It was Paul Molitor was our leadoff hitter.
Molitor cracks it to left. It's going to drop for a base hit.
Very aggressive style.
Paul Molitor has probably made more things happen for this Milwaukee ball club on the positive side
than anybody.
We had Robin Yount hitting the second hole, and he was probably our best player overall.
Robin Yount does it again.
Hear the crowd? MVP.
And I hit in the number 3 hole.
There was always somebody on base. Robin and Paulie and Cecil, they'd all hit 30, 35 home runs, and they'd all hit 390.
But then we had Ben Ogilvie who hit behind me. Ted Simmons was our catcher. Gorman Thomas.
The Wallbangers' deep and powerful group of hitters would lead the league in home runs, and at one point set a new power standard by hitting back-to-back-to-back home runs twice in an 8-day span.
Go, ball, go! Go!
As the Brewers made their move in the East, out west, another team filled with power-hitting sluggers was flourishing, the California Angels.
We assembled quite a club, and it was an experienced club.
A club that included 36-year-old Reggie Jackson.
Jackson hits one high, deep to right field. Way back. You can tell it goodbye.
Supporting Jackson, 7-time batting champion Rod Carew, and former MVP Fred Lynn, helping to make the Angels the second most potent offense in the league.
Well hit toward right. This is back. And all Chet Lemon can do is look up and say goodbye.
This is a good club. We know how to play ball. We know how to win.
And it wasn't just the team's bats. On the mound, the Angels staff led by righty Ken Forsch and lefty Jeff Zahn allowed the fewest runs of any team in the American League.
It was a good team to be on. It was easy to play.
And at the All-Star break, the Angels had surged into first place, looking to reach the postseason for just the second time in the franchise's 22-year history, and potentially match up with the red-hot Brewers in the AL playoffs. When the 1982 calendar turned to the first week of August, the spotlight in the baseball world turned to Cooperstown, New York, and 2 all-time greats being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
He did it! There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
Home run king Hank Aaron, and the man then 4th on the all-time list, Frank Robinson. 2 of the greatest players ever to step on the diamond, enshrined side by side in their first year of eligibility.
To Hank, I'd just like to say I've been chasing him for a long time. But I got him today. I'm going into the Hall of Fame before he does. So I finally got you, buddy.
And while Robinson paid tribute to Hammer and Hank, Aaron spoke of those who had broken ground before him.
I also feel especially proud to be standing here where some years ago Jackie Robinson and Roy Campanella made it possible for Frank and me and for other blacks hopeful in baseball. They proved to the world that a man's ability is limited only by his lack of opportunity. Thank you very much.
And in a year when 2 legends were inducted into the Hall, future Hall of Famers also shined across the game.
Gaylord knew how to manipulate people. He knew how to be a great competitor, but he also knew how to cheat.
Gaylord Perry, the alleged master of the spitball, earned his 300th win on May 6th.
Everybody on their feet here at the Kingdom.
I remember today that ground ball to Julio Cruz and to first base, and that last out, 300 win.
Ground ball to Cruz. This should do it. He's got it. It's over. Gaylord has 300. Gaylord Perry becomes the 15th man in baseball history to win 300 games.
Well, maybe you guys remember it's a guy running 300 instead of that other pitcher.
Later in May, Cubs pitcher Ferguson Jenkins, another hurler who seemed destined for the Hall, became just the 7th pitcher in the game's history to reach the 3,000 strikeout plateau.
I think the team in San Diego knew that I was going to set a record, so a lot of these guys didn't want to strike out.
Dreams do come true. Holy Toledo!
What made Fergie Jenkins' career extraordinary was that he became the first pitcher in the history of the Hall of Fame to gain entry, having struck out more than 3,000 batters with less than 1,000 walks. As they say in baseball, he could hit a gnat in the butt if he had to. He had incredible control, and what a testimony to him that he was able to make it to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Jenkins was again part of history, albeit unwittingly, on August 4th, when he served up a two-run single to the Mets' Joel Youngblood. Before the game was over, Youngblood was dealt to Montreal, and after catching a flight, he singled off Steve Carlton, becoming the only player ever to get a hit in two cities for two different teams on the same day. But the biggest headliner in 1982...
There goes Henderson.
...was undoubtedly future first-ballot Hall of Famer, Rickey Henderson.
In 1982, he was running wild. He had the arrogance that great base stealers have to have, believing that there is no catcher in the world that can throw him out.
And on August 27th, that base-running arrogance was on full display when Henderson broke Lou Brock's single-season record with his 119th stolen base.
He's running. A pitch out. The throw to second. He is safe at second. He's stolen 119.
If our team is down and I go out there and try to pick them up and just keep running and stealing bases, I really don't know how many bases I can steal.
Rickey went on to swipe 130 bases in all in 1982. A mark that has stood up for 26 years and counting.
It was tremendous divisional races, right down to the wire. Every single day, from August through September, it was back and forth, back and forth. It was Ali Frazier.
All across the game in 82, baseball's heavyweights battled to the finish.
We have to wind up with one less loss than Milwaukee at the end of the season.
Fly ball will hit to left field. It could be. It might be. And it's gone.
This was baseball at its best.
Drummer stealing off. He is safe, and the Cardinals win.
There's not been a pennant race similar to that since then.
After waging division battles all year, in the season's final week, the Angels and Cardinals finally secured playoff berths.
A ground ball to third. Oberthal has it. Throws. That's it. The Cardinals have won it. Ground ball back to Sanchez. And the Angels have won the West.
But in the AL East and the NL West, after 161 games, winners had still not been determined.
To be the hill-biting time and a must-win for the Dodgers.
Tommy Lasorda's defending champions had narrowed the Braves' lead to a single game, heading into the season's final day.
We lost, and the Dodgers won, and there was going to be a one-game playoff in L.A., and none of us wanted to go back to L.A. for a one-game playoff.
Why the hell did they put the scores up?
It was a Sunday of multitasking for Lasorda. Watch the scoreboard and manage the game, at least until it became apparent LA had gotten a break.
Well, we lost our game in San Diego and went in and sat down in front of the TV and watched the Giants and the Dodgers finish their game.
For the Dodgers, it was simple. Beat arch-rival San Francisco and force a one-game playoff. But with the score tied at 2 in the bottom of the 7th, a future Hall of Famer came to the plate for the Giants and played spoiler.
The moment that stands out for me is Joe Morgan's home run.
Go, Joe. Come on. The 1-2 pitch. Morgan fouls it high and deep right field. Way back goes Monday to first. It is gone. Home run, Joe Morgan.
Hit that home run to basically knock the Dodgers out on the last day.
And they will jump for joy in Georgia as the San Francisco Giants knock the Dodgers out of it.
We snuck in the back door. We were excited. We were excited to experience our first playoff.
While the Braves lucked out, there would be no backdoor entrances from the AL East into the postseason. With the schedule pitting the two teams battling for first, head-to-head, in a dramatic final series.
When the Milwaukee Brewers came to Baltimore to play the final 4 games of the 1982 season, they had only to win one to clinch the American League East.
Milwaukee's supposed to win one of these 4 games. We're not supposed to sweep them.
They have not been able to do it. They have instead been pummeled by the Baltimore Orioles.
Milwaukee's sweat. They hear footsteps, and we're going to overtake them.
For the Brewers, just as ominous as those footsteps was star closer Raleigh Finger's arm injury, which had kept him out since early September, while the Orioles crept back into the race.
We had to pull together the team. We couldn't rely on, being ahead a couple of runs going in the last inning and hoping he can come in and pitch because we didn't have him.
The Orioles, meanwhile, were playing with added incentive, seeking to give the iconic Earl Weaver, retiring at season's end, a grand send-off.
As a manager, you're always nervous, you're always worried.
I'm going to get goosebumps when you walk in.
All we need to do is win this one. Looks like it might be ours.
With everything at stake, both teams sent their most accomplished pitchers to the mound in Game 162.
We had 2 future Hall of Famers pitching, Don Sutton.
Ready, Donnie?
And we had Jim Palmer, who hadn't been beaten in 14 or 15 starts.
Both pitchers clearly destined for the Baseball Hall of Fame.
2 Hall of Fame pitchers. And Robin Yount, Hall of Fame shortstop, hit a home run in the first inning.
In the air to right. Dwyer to the corner. To the wall. Home run for Robin Yount.
2 innings later, Yount further strengthened his case for MVP.
That ball is well hit. Deep left field. It's gone. And Robin Yount has hit successive home runs off Jim Palmer.
And all of a sudden, going into the last few innings, it looked pretty darn dim.
Hit in the air to left. Ben Ogilvy coming on. He's waiting. He's got it. And the Brewers win the Eastern Division Championship and a very, very happy Brewer Club. And California, here they come.
So finally the Brewers can pop the champagne. Spud Selig has come down.
Spud Selig.
Yep.
Next thing I know, there's a gigantic celebration right in front of us. It was an unbelievable feeling.
While the Brewers left to continue celebrating in the visitors' clubhouse, Orioles fans stayed in the stands to thank Weaver one more time.
You are bearing witness to one of the most remarkable scenes maybe that you will ever see in sport.
After the Milwaukee celebration kind of died down a little bit, our fans seemed to want myself and our players to come back on the field.
And there they are standing and chanting, all of them in unison.
The fact that the fans gave myself and the team a tribute helped take away the hurt that it was from losing the ball game.
And Earl Weaver is crying, and you can understand it. Very rarely has there been a scene like this, if ever.
It was quite a tribute.
And the sign says it all. Goodbye, Earl, and you deserve it.
The 1982 National League Championship Series opened in St. Louis, with the Cardinals confident of their prospects against the visiting Braves.
We had a nice advantage going into postseason play because they had no time to go home then. They came right from the West Coast into St. Louis to play us.
They had a great team. We knew going in that it was going to be a tough series.
Atlanta's prospects were hindered further when Mother Nature burned Ace Bill Necro in the opener.
The rain starting to come down again. With 1 out in the bottom of the 5th inning, this is not an official game.
That game got rained out, so we ended up losing Necro's start, and we ended up starting back again.
Once they didn't get to finish that first game, the Braves were pretty much dead in the water.
Ground ball up with it is Chambliss. Bedrosian late getting there. Everybody's safe. Oh, man.
As the Braves blundered, Bob Forsch was dominant in Game 1, Take 2.
Forsch pitched a shutout in the first game, the other first game.
Swing and a bouncer to second base. Herr has it and throws. That's a St. Louis winner. 7-0.
We were going to have to figure out some way to beat these guys at least one time at their place.
But the Redbirds were relentless, winning Game 2 in walk-off fashion.
The right center field. Butler on the run. Reaches up, can't make the catch. Green around third comes in to score, and the Cardinals lead 2 games to nothing. And the Cardinals are 1 game away from the World Series.
And then they beat the Braves easily in Atlanta.
Smith makes the catch, and the Cardinals are the pennant winners of the National League. Whitey Herzog and his gang deserved it. They've beaten the Braves 3 straight.
The 1982 American League Championship Series begins here tonight as the Angels host the Milwaukee Brewers.
We wanted to play Milwaukee, and we got them. We handled them pretty easily at our place in Anaheim.
We were kind of sleepwalking.
Big bounce to third baseman Molitor off his glove into left field.
We played the ball games, but I don't know if we were really there, you know, and they ended up beating us both ball games.
The California Angels have won the first 2.
Just like that, the Angels were a win away from the franchise's first trip to the Fall Classic as the series shifted to Milwaukee.
I wanted to win that third game. I didn't want to go any further, let them get any life into them.
We go back home and we kind of get pumped up a little bit playing at home.
In front of the home crowd, it should do a tremendous thing for this Milwaukee club.
5 days earlier, Don Sutton had held off the Orioles. Now he was trying to save the Brewers' season.
Swing and a miss, struck him out. Third time today, Sutton has struck out Jackson.
With Raleigh Fingers still unavailable, Pete Ladd came out of the bullpen to finish the win.
But Peter Ladd comes out of the bullpen and slams the door.
We're fortunate to get that first win, and then things kind of rolled from there. We got some big hits and got it going.
Here comes Brohard. 3-0 Brewers. And the Brewers have come back to take 2 in a row.
Meaning the series was headed to a 5th game at County Stadium. The winner would go to the World Series.
Nobody had ever come back from 0-2 at that point, and here we are on a late Sunday afternoon, another nationally televised game.
From a jam-packed County Stadium with the American League Championship on the line.
The Angels scored first to take the early lead, meaning the Wallbangers would have to come back once more.
Gone! A home run for Ben Ogleby! And the Brewers are back to within a run at 3-2.
It got down to key hits. They got the big ones, and we didn't get it. That one with Coop.
The pitch to Cooper. Base hit, left field, a liner. 1-run home. Downing throw coming on. Gardner's flag. He's safe. Wow! 4-3 Milwaukee.
Not that I think about it much, but I still remember him slashing one to left field.
Cooper delivers. Listen to this crowd at County Stadium.
The Brewers were 6 outs from the pennant. 6 outs they'd have to get without Raleigh Fingers.
There were 2 outs and a man on second in the 9th inning.
The Angels have the tying run at second.
Here was Pete Ladd pitching.
Here comes Carew.
Why does it have to be Rod Carew, the greatest hitter in baseball? But he hit a bullet right at Robin Yount.
Line to Yount, it's short. He throws. It's over. The Brewers have won the American League pennant. Thousands of people streaming onto the field at County Stadium.
Started to cry, couldn't believe it. The Brewers were in the World Series.
Milwaukee, you have a World Series. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
A voice came on the radio and said, well, it's be the 79th World Series starting Tuesday night in St. Louis between the Milwaukee Brewers and the St. Louis Cardinals. And I must tell you, I started to cry. I couldn't believe it. The Brewers were in the World Series.
Nobody expected the Cardinals to win the World Series in 1982.
Well, it was David and Goliath.
The fact that they had hit 220 home runs and we had only hit 67, people didn't give us much of a chance.
Watch out, Andy.
Rarely in the history of baseball have you had such a contrast. You had the big sluggers from Milwaukee, and you had the speed guys for St. Louis.
And when Game 1 began, the mismatch many had predicted appeared to be accurate.
There's a base hit to center field. Here comes one run in. Here comes another run in. And it's 7-0 Milwaukee.
Leadoff batter Paul Molitor had 5 hits, and shortstop Robin Yount had 4.
Harvey's wall bangers are banging it all over the place.
As the Brewers tallied 10 runs, making starter Mike Caldwell's job easy as he breezed to the shutout. As lopsided a Game 1 victory as any World Series had seen since 1959.
I'm just glad we didn't have a doubleheader.
The next night, Game 2 was critical to the Cards. Even in the eyes of some, a must-win.
If they'd been down 0-2 going to Milwaukee, which hadn't hosted a World Series since the 50s, that'd have been a tough nut for the Cardinals to break.
But it appeared ex-Cardinal Ted Simmons was set on single-handedly taking down his former team.
It's hit well, and he will touch the ball again.
The catcher's second homer in 2 nights gave the Brewers a 3-0 lead. But in the 6th, his successor in St. Louis, Darryl Porter, came to the plate with a chance to do some damage of his own.
Runners at the corners for St. Louis.
Let's go with them bats. Come on. Let's get them bats, gentlemen. Come on.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Runner goes, and it's a base hit in the left field corner. Here comes Hendrick with a tying run.
Two innings later, Porter would be at the center of the rally that put the Cards ahead for good in a 5-4 win. At 1 game apiece, the series shifted to Milwaukee, where a rail-thin rookie would power the Redbirds.
That might have been one of the greatest World Series games played by any individual in the history of the game.
Straight away, center field. McGee going back, near the wall. He makes the grab. Hit high and deep to right field. Moore going back. McGee will touch them all. A 3-run home run for rookie Willie McGee, and the Cardinals jump in front 3-0.
That was a situation where you had a young player who was in the World Series for the first time, who was taking advantage of the opportunity.
McGee hits another drive to right field, and that might go. It's gone. Home run McGee. And it is 5-0 St. Louis.
2 home runs in 1 game from a player who'd hit just 4 all season.
The 2 home runs that Willie hit were big, but I think even more important than that was the robbing of Gorman Thomas home run.
Gorman hits a high fly ball into left center field. McGee to the wall, leaps in the air, caught the ball. Willie McGee took a 2-run home run away from Gorman Thomas.
McGee's tremendous performance led the Cards to a 6-2 win and their first series lead. Momentum that appeared to carry over to Game 4 when St. Louis sped literally to a 5-1 lead.
Willie McGee down at third. Ozzie Smith is on at second. The batter is Tommy Herb. High fly ball, center field. Thomas is going back. It'll score at least 1. I say 1 because Ozzie Smith can run. Gorman Thomas falls. They're going to try to score 2. Here comes the relay throw. It is not in time.
Suddenly, the Brewers were staring at a possible 3-1 deficit until a door opened ever so slightly in the 7th.
He dropped it.
LaPointe dropped the ball, and the story goes that Hernandez says, if that had been a cheeseburger, you would have caught it, because LaPointe was kind of a portly player. Now, maybe that story was Whitey saying Hernandez would have said that, but that was the best line that came out of that.
Fans had watched the Wallbangers exploit miscues like this all season. The World Series would prove no exception.
Nice and easy. Get your good ball and work with.
Robin Yount and company got plenty to work with, and hit after hit turned into run after run.
Milwaukee with a 6-run, bottom of the 7th. The final score, Milwaukee 7, St. Louis 5.
That was a disheartening loss. And, of course, Milwaukee came back in the 5th game, played one of the outstanding ball games. That's when showed their true strength of their ball club.
And at the core of the club was the American League MVP.
Hear the crowd? MVP. Baseball.
Red Hot Robin Yount pushed his series average over 500 with 4 hits in Game 5, becoming the first player ever to have 2 separate 4-hit games in a World Series.
Certainly a highlight to have another 4-hit game, but actually more meaningful than that was the 4th hit.
Well hit, right field. He's got his 4th hit, home run.
I hit a home run my last time up, and let's face it, it's every kid's dream to hit a home run in a World Series. Something I'll always remember.
The 6-4 win put the Brewers on the precipice of a championship, though they'd have to win it back in St. Louis. As the 1982 World Series returned to St. Louis, the Brewers were one win away from a title, though the Cardinals remained confident.
Our thinking was when we went home, you know what? We've won 2 in a row, a lot more than we've lost 2 in a row.
And as far as these two teams are concerned, it has come down to this. Whether there will be one tomorrow remains to be seen.
We'd get beat one day and we'd come back the next day and play like nothing happened the day before.
On this night, the Cardinals' prospects rested on the arm of rookie pitcher John Stuper, while the Brewers were countering with future Hall of Famer Don Sutton.
I sat next to Stoop the whole way home to St. Louis. I said, you know what? Nobody expects you to outpitch Sutton. All the pressure's on them.
Here we go.
High chopper up along first is going to hit the rug. Grabbed by Stuper, throws him out. It has been some night for John Stuper.
In the biggest game he'd ever pitched, the rookie allowed just 1 run. While matched against Sutton, the Cardinals broke out with a sudden burst of power.
Swung on and a drive to right to the wall. It's gone. Darryl Porter drives one over the right field fence.
High drive, deep right field. Hernandez will touch a ball.
The Cardinals exploded for one of their biggest offensive outputs of the year, while the Brewers' agony was prolonged by a downpour that stretched the nightmare game seemingly forever.
We play ball, if necessary, at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning?
Without any question.
We had to sit around for almost 2 hours to play the ball game, and then ended up losing that ball game. I think that really kind of took the momentum from us.
The St. Louis Cardinals winning a must game, 13-1.
There's something about coming down to one game after well over 170 games, knowing that is going to determine the ultimate champion of the given year.
Game 7. Time for everyone to get nervous.
In the decisive matchup, both teams had their aces on the mound. Pete Vuckovich for the Brewers and Joaquin Andujar for the Cardinals.
Should be quite a night. We all know about the courage of Vuckovich.
9 in a row, retired by Andujar.
Look at Vuckovich. You don't think he's bearing down?
The game was tied at 1 through 5. But in the top of the 6th, the Brewers got a break to pull ahead.
Ball gets away. The run scores. Milwaukee, they're dancing in the streets, and that's the way it should be.
In the regular season and the LCS, the Brewers had prevailed in final game situations. But now the Cardinals were uninterested in following that script.
We had a team that just kept bouncing back. It just was amazing.
And in the bottom of the 6th, the Cards bounced right back.
It's a base hit to left.
Vuckovich delivers and is all shot.
Ozzie and Lonnie are in scoring position.
It's inside and the bases are loaded for Pete Hernandez. Hit into right center. It's going to fall for a base hit. All tied 3-3.
Line into right field. It's 4-3 St. Louis.
In the 8th, more clutch hitting from Darryl Porter gave the Cards some insurance. And now with a 3-run lead, St. Louis was 3 outs from the championship, with one of the best closers in the game set to pitch the 9th.
I turned it over to Suter, and he finished the ball game.
St. Louis is 1 out away from a world championship. Swung on and missed. The Cardinals are the champions of the world.
This team came together and believed that they could win despite not having the most talent.
I got a world championship ring. Here on the field, it is just bedlam. These Cardinal fans have just simply joined in the celebration, and Darryl Porter has been voted the most valuable player in this World Series.
Congratulations on being named MVP.
Thanks. That's just so wonderful. I can't believe it.
I managed Darryl Porter 8 years. And we won 5 division titles, 2 pennants, and 1 World Series. Darryl Porter really was a winning ball player.
Cardinals defeat the Milwaukee Brewers 6-3. They're the world champions, but you certainly have to congratulate the Milwaukee Brewers for a great season, a great series.
When the Brewers returned home, the sting of losing was dulled by their fans, who welcomed them back with a parade nonetheless.
Downtown, as you can see, the road is completely jammed. You can't even move out here.
People were hanging out of buildings, sidewalks jammed, people waving, crying, happy. That was just a great season.
Next year, I hope to bring the people of Milwaukee, not me, but the Milwaukee Brewers, a world championship. Thank you.
But the team's success would be short-lived, and Milwaukee would not make the playoffs again for over a quarter century. When in 2008, a new generation of Milwaukee sluggers mashed their way to a wild card berth.
And they're finally back.
The Orioles, though, would be buoyed by their near miss in '82. And led by league MVP Cal Ripken, Baltimore would win the World Series in '83.
And the Orioles are the world champions.
In St. Louis, Whitey Ball would also continue to thrive.
It may go! Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
The Cards would return to the World Series in '85 and '87. Both times find themselves on the losing side of Game 7s.
I'd like to win all three of them, but I'd rather be 1-2 than 0-0.
Rickey Henderson's 130 stolen bases in 1982 still stands as a single-season mark. Inevitably, he would become the all-time leader in stolen bases, and also set career marks for walks and runs scored.
Greatest leadoff hitter, perhaps, in the history of baseball. No argument here.
1982 was a fitting year for his ascent to superstardom, a season when speed and pitching got past power.
The St. Louis Cardinals are world champions.
And when September and October baseball was as exciting and unpredictable as any year in the game's history.